Okay, I'm pretty sure we're streaming. Let me pull up the right one. Okay, yeah, I think we're streaming.
Okay. Hola. So we are nothing too formal here, we're just chatting for a while, and decided to start with this Triffin dilemma thing that came out recently.
I don't want to mess up our screen, so you can pull up the article and you want to read it, or you want to introduce it.
Should we show the article?
Yeah, let me.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the article. St. Louis Fed VP, a private crypto could solve the Triffin dilemma. And cryptocurrencies could serve as a possible solution to disparities currently faced by the U.S. dollar, an economist with the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis said on Tuesday. And basically, I don't want to read this whole article, but getting into it, I'll read this part right here. The Triffin dilemma refers to the double-edged sword of possessing a currency that serves as the world currency. If a private cryptocurrency were to replace a given world currency, this would eliminate the dilemma for that currency. Basically, this is getting to the heart of what's going on in our whole world right now, how the U.S. and the U.S. dollar is a reserve currency of the world. And people in the rest of the world is starting to not like that. Like it fundamentally changes how we operate our monetary policy nationally and internationally. Like how we operate here is one way, and then we can change how we operate on the international stage because we control the U.S. dollar. And basically, what this guy is saying, and it's funny because not all the people at the Fed are these evil people. A lot of them are just really smart PhD people that studied economy and stuff, but they just know equations and numbers and science.
Right.
But so he basically came out and said, like, made the case for cryptocurrencies and changing the world order. Like he's like, oh yeah, a private cryptocurrency would solve that Triffin dilemma. This is one of the biggest problems our world faces right now, and it's just in passing.
So there's somebody asking questions of a Federal Reserve Bank something. And Dolfado. I don't know what job he does at the Federal Reserve, but this guy's being interviewed. And they ask him, could cryptocurrencies solve this Triffin dilemma? And the way so the Triffin dilemma being that because we're the world's reserve currency, everybody needs our currency. So we have to be in a trade deficit so that they stack up our money in their country. So then all the countries all over the world basically have to have this reserve of US dollars, which is, in my way of saying it in the outline I've been building, it is the power problem. There's so much power in the hands of the people who run the US dollar, especially compounded because the whole world needs the US dollar. So then this guy says, when posed the Triffin dilemma question, and Dolfado responded, the Triffin dilemma refers to the double-edged sword of possessing a currency that serves as the world reserve currency. If a private cryptocurrency were to replace a given world reserve currency, this would eliminate the dilemma for that currency. I don't know what private cryptocurrency means. You said maybe Monero, but I don't think that's what he's talking about.
This is where I've heard a lot of different videos, and this is where you really get into a lot of different nuances and how different people have different views or perspectives on what cryptocurrencies are what versus private versus public. Like you might look at Quorum from, is it Quorum? Is that what it's called? From Chase, JP Morgan's. They're bucking. That might be the private cryptocurrency they're talking about. Of course, that would be what the Fed and like the BIS would say is needed. It's one that we control, right? The public are probably need more like blockchain. But then you go, and one guy I was here and he was talking about it, and he was actually saying things like EOS were public blockchains and Bitcoin was actually private. And like from the way he was describing it, I'm like, oh, I see your perspective. But it's even over in China, they have a different perspective on cryptos as we do because of their government structure is so different that the way that they see these different cryptos is like they EOS is number one on their list. But if you see what's happening, even with the 21 block producers and all this collusion, they're trying to build a system of governance where people can actually vote on things, which is completely new. Not new, but like they don't really get to vote in China, you know?
Right. And a private cryptocurrency, they're saying, I still don't understand what this guy means. I'm like super confused by it.
He's just saying that basically our world and the wars in it are happening because of currencies and one country controlling a currency. His basic premise is if it wasn't a country controlling the currency, if it was a currency that the whole world it's just there. And I kind of been saying this was happening with Bitcoin. It passed a psychological barrier because before we had this tribalism and nationalism where people are like my currency, my country. But now there's already people in every country in the world with Bitcoin, and their allegiance has shifted. So they've broken down this border barrier of currencies to have our attachment to the currency of the country. And when we can all as a world shift our perspective away from having countries' currencies to a global currency, and he's saying private currency because he's trying to control the narrative here. He wants a private currency controlled by the banks. If he just said a cryptocurrency could solve the Triffin dilemma if it was globally used and accepted, because it wouldn't be controlled by a government like the US or Russia or China or any of these. If any of those countries, if it's the yuan, if it's the ruble, we're going to keep going into wars. It can't be a country controlling a currency.
So to me, and this is, I think, where this is a big focus of mine, is picking apart these words. Like, what do these people actually mean when they put word salads together? So a private cryptocurrency, to me, sounds like an oxymoron. If it's a cryptocurrency, this word cryptocurrency was invented to describe Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was invented to describe this new thing, which was that it's decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
There is no person or company or government controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
Private cryptocurrency, to me, there seems like he's saying a company controls it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting caught up in the semantics. This is coming from somebody that works at the Fed. They're not going to want something that's not controlled by anybody. Don't get caught up. That's just them. If it's on CoinDesk, you're looking at an article on CoinDesk, which is owned by the Digital Currency Group. They controlling that's why they put out positive stories and negative stories. Right. You just need to look past the words and realize what this guy said. He made the case for cryptocurrencies. Just flat out said, this cryptocurrency could solve the Triffin dilemma. Yeah, he's trying to say which type. A private currency.
Right.
A cryptocurrency can solve the Triffin dilemma.
Right. I'm disagreeing with that. I think if we went to a private cryptocurrency, well, first of all, it's not a cryptocurrency. Now it's just a private digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have a private digital currency that the whole world has to own, then we're in the exact same boat as we are, except for now a company calls all the shots.
Take out the private. That's just what he said. He's not the ruler of the world. That's going to be that. He made a case. I'm saying take out private and just put crypto in there.
Yeah. Don't
get sucked into the semantics. You're playing their game.
I'm trying to pick apart their game. I'm trying to expose, show how they're playing games. They're playing games to try and manipulate people and say that.
Just all you got to do, just say like, right here, they're saying private cryptocurrency because this is coming from the Fed and they want a private currency that they control, like a AML Bitcoin or something that really is private currency.
So if a private cryptocurrency were to replace the world reserve currency, that would eliminate the dilemma for that currency. Yeah. It seems like a mess to me. It seems like they are trying to steal our words, trying to steal this, trying to divert, trying to subvert this new technology and steal it back and call it a cryptocurrency, but make the exact same thing that's existed forever and say something.
Yeah.
Trying to steal it would solve a cryptocurrency, a real one, would solve this problem because now there isn't a person in control of the currency.
Mm-hmm.
Now the whole world doesn't have to hold that currency that's created by some person.
Mm-hmm.
So it would solve the Triffin dilemma. But he's like trying to say that even if we change it, we'll make it exactly the same as it has been, but we'll say it's cryptocurrency. So we'll still have all of the benefits of a real cryptocurrency, which it won't.
Yeah, he's trying to control it and bring it back in. And there's lots of videos like Bix and all those guys that make videos. The elites, the people at the top, they're not creative. They don't make new ideas. They steal them. They look at they let all this billions of people come up with good shit, and then they're like, that looks like a good idea, and that seems to be where people are going. Let's get on there before we have it. We got all the money. We got the net. We got the news. We got the media and all the crap, and they can try and co-opt it. Yeah, that's what's happening. And unfortunately, the way the world's currently set up is probably going to get a lot of people, because a lot of the people watch CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all these news that are just going to let's go where do they want us to go, and that's where we'll go.
Right. Yeah, that I see as like the big short-term danger. Long-term, I don't think it's that big of a danger, and I think that'd be fun to get into. But short-term, I agree. There's a whole bunch of people out here screaming the word cryptocurrency and blockchain and decentralization. They're trying to attribute those words to things that are exactly the same as the old system. They're not cryptocurrencies or decentralized or blockchains, not in this sense. And I think you're right. I think that exactly will happen. A whole bunch of people will get conned. They'll get fooled into, they heard the word blockchain. They think blockchain's a good thing. This person put the word blockchain on something that's not a blockchain. So that person gets fooled and they get screwed.
Mm-hmm. And this is possible different ways it could go. Like half of it's just getting people there. Just because like I think on World Alternative Media or somebody, they like talk about cryptocurrencies are a natural red pill. Like once you get that first one, then that's why they're like, if you really want to get people into it, just start giving them some money, some cryptos, and they'll start looking at it, looking into it, because it makes them ask questions like, what is money? What? And like these deeper philosophical understandings in our world. And so even once you start getting the general people more involved, even if they do the government private one and all that crap, they might start thinking at a deeper level about what this is. And as time progresses, they might get more into it and be like, hey, let me go more towards these public ones that I control and away from this. It's still a sham. We're all kind of like, we're so crypto gung-ho. We're like, we want the transition to happen in a fucking day. And like, bam, crypto's worldwide. It's going to take a decade, dude. It's going to take a decade. We just got to be patient, and we're going to be at the top of the big pile because we're just doing it now and helping bring this thing. But it's going to take a while. The banks have controlled the world since at least 1913. Just this current 1973 or whatever, when Nixon did this is current reorganization of the whole system.
Right.
They don't let go, and it's never like, even if we defeat them now in 100 years, they're gonna be back, and we're gonna be gone, and the people are gonna be sheeple again. And it's gonna be like, start over. Yes, no.
Right. I want to get back to that, but I want to flesh out the thing in the middle some first.
Okay.
That is what I meant by the long term. So what I think is that long term, they lose as soon as they open the door for competition. So right now they have everything clamped down. We made Bitcoin. Bitcoin forced that door open. Now they're tagging along and trying to subvert all this energy going towards Bitcoin. And I think they'll succeed in subverting a lot of it. But now we have a situation where they have succeeded in subverting a lot of it, but now that's competing against Bitcoin, however big or small Bitcoin, like the real thing, is. And then long term, this is just so much better. They're still trying to suck so much energy out of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're still trying to have that power where they can create money. And if a whole bunch of people are using it and they can create it, then they're stealing from this. So, but now they're in a free market situation where their thing that they control is having to compete against Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And and the enforcement costs.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the recent video? I think it was Cliff High talking to, I don't know if it was Bix, it might have been Bix Weir, but they was kind of discussing this, and he was saying there's two different scenarios that could have happened, and because we're assuming that it organically rose out of cyberpunks, and this is all. And no, what if this was the banks the whole time? There's two different scenarios. Say they've been kind of manifest or creating this system for decades, right? And they kind of started seeding it out into the public. But what happened is somebody noticed and it got caught on somewhere. And so they can try and develop it. But once you get billions of people, or just a few of, and the people that caught on were like the upper echelon of the nerdy computer coders. They saw this happening. And so they took it and they started developing it. And it caught on all these different places and they got ahead of the bank. So now the bank is trying to play catch up, even if they created it. And then the other scenario is even if they didn't create it and it started off and now they see this happening and they're still trying to play catch up. Either way. So what you're saying is true. They're seeing it, they're trying to ride on the coattails, but that's what they've always done. They see where the public's going and they like, let's jump on. That's what every smart investor, that's what I do, like learning to invest and stuff. It's like, oh, I'm reading an article like Fortnite is as addictive as heroin. I'm gonna invest in things related to Fortnite because it's gonna be around for a couple of decades. Like
Right.
looking at trends, they're just doing that. They're like, hey, look, this is a growing trend. It's been around for a decade now, and more people are doing it. Maybe we should invest in it. Let's see if we can manipulate the system and shove the price down and buy it all up.
Right. Right.
Either way, they're playing catch up. And they're not going to be able, the small group and the minds that they have are not going to be able to outpace the rest of collective humanity, which is what, if you read, like when you first read the Bitcoin white paper, it's like, if the group, the bigger percentage of the group works towards an honest goal, corruptors can't overcome.
Right. And it's probably a nasty transition because they're going to fight hard to keep as much control as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because I think a lot of it will get blamed on Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin will be pointed at as the instigator of all this stuff when the problems are coming from them trying to steal as much energy as they can from Bitcoin.
So we have really short memories. It's like, we forget the lessons that we just learned, even with like what's going on now with our economy, and it's going to start tanking, right? And everybody's like, it's the tariffs. I'm like, no, it's been going down the shit for like a decade. That's just the thing that they're going to point on, but it's been going downhill.
Right.
And that's more like, what can we say to excuse what's happening? They're like, tariffs. If it wasn't, it's going to be a war, tariffs, or something. They're going to say, they're going to make something happen and then be like, that's the reason our economy is going to shit.
Yep. Shift blame and try and maintain control.
Mm-hmm.
So going on that, a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I think this is going to happen anyway. I think Bitcoin's going to happen anyway, and that they're going to try and maintain as much control as they can by whether it's EOS and whatever it is, a whole bunch of cryptos that they make to try and subvert. I think it's going to happen with or without you or me or Bix or Cliff or anybody else. But I feel like I have a lot of value to add here in helping individuals steer clear of all the craziness. There's a whole bunch of people trying to steal your money during this transition. If you can really understand what's going on, then you can do a much better job avoiding all those pitfalls and come out a lot better on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
In like an individual by individual. It's a crazy thing. The people who are paying attention, who aren't complacent, who are really studying and being humble and going into this thing of like knowing that they don't know and it's going to be a hard thing and I got to stay on top of it. Those people, I think, have a humongous chance to come up big in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're holding. You're a good example of it, especially like this growing like the libertarian more movement, the self-responsibility, self-sovereignty. There's this movement occurring, because and it's, to me, it's just on a grander, more macro scale. This is just a pendulum of the universe swinging back and forth. There's like we come kind of like rough times, independent. Like now we're kind of like let's socialism, the government, let's take care of us, and now it's kind of like and let's go back the other way where we're gonna have to start accepting self responsibility, even for your money. Like we're all so used to a bank being able to back charge something because I made it wrong, give me my money back. And like, okay,
Right.
fiddly diddly dee. No, like this the future we're going into, it's kind of like your choices are gonna have a bigger impact immediately. You can't just take it back and it's gonna force us all to start thinking about our choices a little more. And since we're willing, the people that are willing to start this process of weaning yourself off the government teat, you're gonna be rewarded more because you're kind of taking back your personal power by controlling your money. It's your time, energy, work. It's
Right.
what that's what you're learning. You're controlling your time, energy, work, and the time on your this planet is the only thing you really have. And you choose to go work or something, and you make money for it. You're controlling what you can do with that value now, which is
Right.
the best power you got.
Right. I love the saying, strong men make good times make weak men make bad times make strong men.
Mm-hmm.
We had good times, we got complacent, we got lazy, people grew to have a tremendous amount of power. As we got weak, they have made times are a mess, and now bad times make strong men. We have to start doing this. Like
Mm-hmm.
the government teat is running dry, and the longer you stay there, the farther behind the curve you are in being able to stand up by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The more practice you have standing up on your own 2 feet, the better you are at it. So the people who start that process the earliest are the ones who are the best after the government teat runs it entirely dry.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, it's like what the rest of the world is starting to get is that America is just like, give us money and we're not going to ever pay you back. Our
Right.
$21 trillion, and we're still like printing out bonds like there's nothing, and people are buying them. Like the interest rate just shot up over like what it went up to like 3.2% on the bonds, the 10-year bond, which is like that tough times are coming, people. But so we keep selling these bonds, and other countries were before just buying, but now especially the big ones like China and Russia, and some of the other ones, even Japan, they're starting to stop buying the bonds. And we're like, damn it, our jig is up because it's basically us printing money. This goes back to the Triffin dilemma. We just print it. It's not backed by gold. It's backed by America's like, we're awesome. So
Guns.
we print it, we sell it to them, and they give us actual money. And then we go to buy, we got credit card debt, we go to buy all the things. We have guns all around the world, and just whatever the U.S. Empire around the world. And
Right.
people don't realize as soon as other people stop buying those bonds, we're out of money. Like we're in a debt already. This year has already gotten up to $1 trillion deficit. Like all the like Medicare, Social Security, all these things
Right.
cannot be paid for if we stop selling bonds. So if people, as soon as the rest of the country or the other world, the rest of the world stops buying bonds,
That I think you're actually wrong on, because we could buy our own bonds.
what happens is all the money then comes to the U.S.
Mhm.
All the dollars from around the world flood into the U.S. and that's when inflation blows up. So I'm not wrong. I'm like, yeah, we'll buy it, and then it's just like
Right.
a hop, skip, and a jump to.
It gets, as we start buying our own bonds, it gets exponentially more
Yeah.
detrimental for us,
Yeah.
because now to buy our own bonds,
it's
we have to create money even faster. Like no one else is supporting our thievery. We're trying to thieve from ourselves.
Yeah, that's what it's like. People don't realize. That's why I say I'm not like. That's when that happens. The system is gonna pop real
Well,
quick.
So,
and the big problem is that all this money that's stashed in all these emerging countries is gonna get here at the same time. That's when inflation doubles or triples. That's when the prices of everything doubles or triples overnight. You got all the money invested in any of the other countries flooding back into the U.S. economy. That's when they're saying like cryptos might suck it up. Like the only way to keep it from inflating all these other commodities is for it to go into some viable thing like cryptos, and that's why they're saying cryptos could go up to like 100,000 in a couple of months, like Bitcoin, because
Right.
all this money is just going to come back here, and the people that are in control realize the masses will revolt if you're charging them like $10 for a gallon of milk, and so they'll like try to divert that money, and they're the asset managers and stuff. They'll divert it into a different commodity.
Right. And it turns into this like a whole lot of people being happy.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of people who get rich off Bitcoin.
Yep.
So it balances out this thing. Instead of people just everybody being pissed, at least we. And I don't know that. I don't think they did. I don't think they came up with Bitcoin. I don't think they planned this. I think that we figured out a way to get some of ours in this next transition. We created this thing that a whole lot of money can flow into. If we hadn't, then I just think the prices would have gone up and we just all would have been stuck with it. There would have been no way for the common person to benefit.
Yeah, and I think what this really does is give like an easier option for transition. Like if crypto's this is gonna happen. Cryptos just give us like, oh shit, there's a door closing, but look, crypto's opened the window, like something like that. Before like the door just closed and we're in a house with no other exits. Holy shit, that's what it was like, and it's on fire. Now there's like, hey, look, there's a couple other exits. Let's see if we can make our way towards those doors. And it, to me, like, and again, like my whole more macro spiritual level, this is the grander universe like morphing into like I'm bored, new system, and it's like there's gonna be winners and losers, and old people are gonna, or the people that had power in the past, some of them are gonna lose it, some of them are gonna maintain it. People that have nothing now are gonna rise, but that's just the whole evolution of this planet. Like we're coming into like the age of Aquarius, like a new age is happening because reality's bored. It's like this status quo is stupid. It's time to change.
Going along with that parallel, the word unsustainable. I really harp on words, and it's crazy to me how complacent people are with their words. We say the word unsustainable, but it's like it doesn't hit home anywhere what that means. Unsustainable means it cannot continue. It will stop either by choice or by force.
No, I think we're just jaded because we've been saying it for years. Like I was studying environmental health science back in 2014, and that's when I really got into like understanding what's going on. And I'm like, just walk around and say unsustainable. Do you understand what that word means? Because I get, and now I'm kind of like, they can make it go. I don't know how long they can make it go on because apparently they just keep doing, but it's going to stop. That's what unsustainable means. It's like it can't keep going.
Right.
There's not enough planet for it to keep going. We can pretend as long as we want, but eventually it's going to be like, yeah.
Like, I feel like when most people say the word unsustainable, they mean we shouldn't be doing this. That's not what it means. It means if you keep doing it, something will force you to stop doing it.
I think so. Like, I'm working as a behavioral consultant right now, so I really study the like ABA, behavioral analysis and stuff, and seeing what's happened. Like looking at this greater society, they manipulate the population on a mass level just through the media. Because all you have to do to really lessen anything is repeat it over and over and over and over again. So the news, they always tell this isn't sustainable, not sustainable, unsustainable. You use these words over and over again, and it just makes it so that it just becomes the normal. So it almost takes the power away from these words because they've sucked it out. And so people can just like, okay, yeah, and just keep sitting on their couch, watching TV and going forward. And all the meaning behind what the news are trying to listen to, even if they tell the truth, people just take it and like, yeah, you've been saying that for a while. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I've seen this like getting a more like real world example, seeing a domestic violence case, having people live in the house and just having a client that's disabled tell their caretaker, "You're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid." The client that's disabled tell the caretaker that over and over again. Eventually, the caretaker starts believing it. Like we don't realize the power of just repeating something
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing something over and over again, how it just changes us. Like fundamentally, we'll believe things just because it's presented. Like the dissonance in our mind, our body doesn't want to feel this dissonance, so it's like just accept it, because I'm tired of the stress I'm feeling from like not agreeing with the present reality. Like
Right.
that, they've done that to the population.
Right.
You just look at what's going on with this whole Supreme Court shit. Like they trigger mass pain in the female population from the shit that has gone on to them, and then it's just words going on. Like they've caused the. It was the false flag. The false flag is just the big distraction. We just go from big ass distraction to big ass distraction to big ass distraction, and behind people like us are like, hey, let's stop paying attention to those distractions and realize we're living in an unsustainable approach to the world, people. But they're like distraction.
Right.
It's behavioral programming.
Right.
It's disgusting.
Right. So how about this? Right now they have a cheat code to do that. They have the power to create the money so they can buy whatever they want. They can buy these protesters and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
In a Bitcoin world, after the whole transition and after their power grab fades because it is just worse, how profitable do you think that tactic will be in a free market?
I don't think it'll be as profitable. I think there's gonna be a definite paradigm shift in how this is all playing out. Like again, like I said earlier, it'll probably take like a decade for people to really start catching on to what they do. But the more and more people start to take back their personal power and start taking control of the money and realize it can lose it and nobody's going to give it back to them, and the people that were giving it back to them before were actually taking it out of their back pocket at the same time, it's going to be less and less effective.
I think so too. I think.
And the more people like us talk to people about this and just make videos, and everybody, I talk to people all day long about little tiny things related to crypto, or just think about this. And more people are like, I never thought about that. That's a good idea or a good point. And one by one.
Right. And in this world, you can scream, and screaming puts you on the side of all the people with power that create money. So they support that. They build that up and you get paid for it. If there's nobody there with that power to create money who wants that message and who's willing to artificially support it, then I think that message like destroys you. If you want to, so the same things that are making you win right now, if you want to go scream nonsense in 15 years, I think that'll be just like a death warrant. You just like destroyed your career. You've destroyed your reputation because now we have to pay for it. And you have to make money legitimately. The money is legitimate. So if you're going to make it, you have to add value. And that just subtracts value. So people aren't going to pay you for it anymore.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I think people have always been paying people. There's always people that can be corrupted. Even in any system, there'll be people out there that have been mining Bitcoin since the beginning that'll have a bunch that they'll give to people to control or to take a certain narrative down their road. It's
they can what?
That they can use to have people get on their bandwagon. There's always people that end up collecting a bunch of money and then want to try and dictate where we go with the influence of that money. To say that Bitcoin's a pure thing that won't be corrupted like that, that's a people problem. Not like money is money. People will collect it.
Totally. I think it's really important to differentiate though between purchasing power and the power to create money.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who has a lot of money has a lot of power, period.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't create money, then you have to use the money you have wisely or it will dwindle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a really, really fundamental difference in there. And I feel like it's one that a lot of people miss. Like, this is a thing I say to a lot of people. The difference between purchasing power and the power to create money.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the power to create money, then you could just keep stealing until the end. Whereas if you only have purchasing power, you have this pile of money. If you're an idiot with it, it will go away.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do about it.
So how do we get to this place where it's just Bitcoin and no other forms of money being created and nobody can create them, and that's the way it is?
Not that. But everybody can create them.
Yeah, but everybody can right now. We can all create a cryptocurrency. You the one to be like, that's easy to write it, right code? That is.
Right. That's
not what's important. What's important is the network effect. It's everybody agreeing to share that thing. And that is always that's why there's always gonna be multiple things, because as soon as there's one thing and every like a group, somebody's gonna have more, somebody's gonna have less, and now people with less are gonna be like, let's go make our own system when we have more. And so it's more like what you're talking about is creating a system that is kind of fair and balanced throughout, that keeps people in it, that makes the greater percentage of the population want to be in it. And that's just a challenge. It can be possible. It's just that's going to take time to develop. But I get what you're saying, like the difference between purchasing power and just printing, being able to print money. But say you're somebody that finds some land and you find something very valuable on it that is helpful to people. And then you kind of build your society around that thing in there, and then you create your own currency outside of this old system that exists that you were talking about, that was just like they've created a new system, a new currency within this thing based on that thing. That can keep happening all over the place. And then they can kind of control those systems and build it out, and how, depending on that resource, how effective it is in the whole world, it can grow to a greater power.
Okay.
So that's creating money versus purchasing power. So it's like there's always little caveats or different ways that things can go, little scenarios where it can play itself out differently.
I hear you on that. I still think it's a big difference though, because right now, and maybe this would take like defining the word money. Right now, they can create money.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody uses the same tool to communicate value. It is the US dollar. They can create that. That is a way different kind of power than me being able to create a cryptocurrency. I can create 1 billion ERIC tokens right now, but that's not creating money in the same sense, because those things don't have any value.
Mm-hmm.
I have to add value to those things somehow before they have any value. So it's a difference between one person having the lever to the money that all of us use versus everyone having the same ability to create something. And then this competitive environment where if it has any value, it has to win in the free market before it has value. We all have that power. So therefore it's not a power anymore.
Okay. I see what you're saying, but where does this take us in the grander scheme of things?
Well, now in this competitive environment, if you create something that's worse, maybe you can con a few people into using it for a while, but it's not going to last very long.
Mm-hmm. But what's the overlying like connecting thing between all these different people and environments? If you all got your different currencies, we all have the power to create what we want. Like, what's the unifying thing in all of this?
I don't know if there necessarily is.
But there needs to be. That's what I'm saying.
Why?
So you're getting away from like there's always going to need to be some unifying thing. Right now, we don't like that the unifying thing is the U.S. dollar, which is controlled by the U.S. government. That doesn't change the fact that it is a unifying thing that's currently helping the medium of exchange around the world. If you don't have, that's why it's like this concept that like we can all just as people, like I think libertarians think that all people can just self-govern, and I'm like, you haven't tried to be around a group of people. Like
Right.
it's just, we have to kind of create a new power structure. Then eventually it will be corrupted because that's always what happens. But it's like we're at a reset point, like reset. Like I think, and that's when like I hate because I hate getting into religion, but I'm like, but you look at certain things like the Bible. I don't look at it as a religious book. I look at it as like history, and they're kind of like these are some of the lessons we learned about society. Like the whole Jubilee concept is like over 100 years, debts kind of get out of whack, and they're gonna have to be reset. It's not like God said this. It's like no, over 1,000 years, we kind of noticed this pattern, and we decided to write it down. Like there's always a system, and again, this is a human thing. Like some humans save, some humans spend. Over time, some humans hoard, and we all like to organize our ecosystem to benefit us the most. And when you take over like centuries and family power and stuff like that passed down, systems get out of whack. And it just like there needs to be a reset. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Like we're trying to determine, and I think we see that cryptocurrencies can possibly help us reset things in a more fair and balanced way, potentially.
I don't think we need to or should build a new power structure. I think we should, and I think this is what we are doing, is building a structure that doesn't need to have a person in power for that thing to work.
Do you think if we don't build one, that one won't be built?
I think that ones will be built, but I think they'll be corrupt, and I think in the free market they'll lose to the ones that don't have this ring of power inherent in that system. I think there'll be multiple systems competing. One is Bitcoin, where it doesn't have this ring of power, and one is whatever crypto, where it does have a ring of power.
Does Bitcoin have a ring of power?
Not that I can see or tell.
No.
What do you think?
Bitmain doesn't have any influence over Bitcoin.
Bitmain has a lot of influence, but
there's a ring of power. That's what I'm telling you. There's always a ring of power. There's just how many hashing pools control Bitcoin mining power? If 2 or 3 big hashing pools got together, they control Bitcoin.
All right, let me let me define what I mean by Bitcoin. When I say Bitcoin in that sense, I don't mean exactly just the Bitcoin core network. I mean this whole ecosystem. All the things that have developed in the wake of Bitcoin. So what I'm saying is that Bitmain may appear to have a lot of influence over Bitcoin itself, the network right now. I don't think they even have that much influence because I think Bitcoin is pretty well balanced, that if they tried to abuse that power, it would instantly be taken away by the network. Even if I'm wrong on that, and they could take over Bitcoin, I think it would still, the power that they tried to grab would still be taken away by the network, in the sense that the value that's stored in Bitcoin would then be distributed to other things that haven't been corrupted. Someone tries to grab the ring of power, people are going to say, well, I'm not using that anymore. I'll use something else. And I will have this whole competitive environment where I am free to do that. If I'm paying attention and I see Bitcoin being corrupted, going down a bad path, I can just switch to Digibyte or Litecoin or whatever ones I want.
I think it's a lot easier in this current ecosystem to say that when you got 2% of the population maybe dealing with it. And you got to realize who are the 2% involved. It ain't the sheeple. These are the illiterate. These are the self-sovereign. I'm controlling my shit. These people they're the wise to this. You're talking about the current landscape. Yes. We'd always be like, no, you ain't controlling us. Whoop. Wait until 30% of the population is, and they're just gonna be, they're not gonna be moving from crypto to crypto to crypto. They're gonna be like, they won't even see that the Fed has corrupted the crypto. They'll just be like, it still works, right?
I I'm more talking about like maybe 100 or 200 year time scale.
See, I'm not talking about shit I'm not gonna be around for, man.
Well, and there's no like whatever demarcation point you put on it doesn't really matter because it's all a transition. It's all a free flowing thing. There's not like starts here and ends here. That doesn't make any sense in nature at all. But just that now we've introduced this crazy evolutionary pressure where the people who pay the more attention and who use the better money and the people who the monies that are better eventually just siphon more and more power from the monies that are worse. So as Bitcoin gets corrupted, it will get taken down. And as the next thing gets corrupted, it will get taken down. And if it will get taken down just by evolution, because evolution is constantly pushing what's better.
Yep. It's like time to change. And here, like, I want to say this on video. Like, because I think like 10 years from now, I'm pretty sure cryptocurrency is going to be huge. There's going to be a lot of people complaining about those who have a bunch and all this shit. And
it already is.
In this video, I'm going to say, we were trying to tell people, like, there was plenty of evidence, plenty of information out there, people trying to tell people, you can't say that they were trying, that even if, no, they are controlling the narrative. I know Coinbase owns CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, all the major sites that control the big news stories. They're like ETF denied, ETF, yeah, all this crap. It's owned by them. They're totally controlling it. That doesn't change the fact that there's people like us online going, don't pay attention to that. Just buy them. And if you weren't willing or able to go and find that information, you can't complain in 10 years when you're not as wealthy. You're not, because I don't know. I've heard enough people with the whole conspiracy thing saying that they manipulate and control people via propaganda, and I'm like, I'm not in it anymore, and I was born in the same world that everybody else was. You can get out if you choose to. If you choose to stay in it, that's your choice, but you can't complain. And that the only way to have personal power is to accept your bad choices as well as your good choices, and to accept that you are choosing to stay in that machine,
right? To
stay in that bubble that they've created for safety. And like you said, there are already people. I'm already like, man, I wish I would have gotten Bitcoin like 5 years ago when I first knew about
it. and not just that, but there's already like all this stuff of Bitcoin's no different because 1% owns 99% of the Bitcoin. I'm like, that's not the difference. I'm not saying that Bitcoin isn't money. Money naturally flows to people who do more stuff. We have this bell curve, and it is a law of nature, and everything works that way. And I heard somewhere, and this is obviously just an estimate. I don't know how you can nail something like this down, but I heard somewhere that, first of all, the IQ scale is logarithmic. The difference between 100 IQ and 115 IQ is 15 points. But in terms of your processing power in your brain, it's a lot smaller gap than the difference between 145 and 160. It's only 15 points, but that scale is logarithmic. So it really stretches out at the end. And this is the same bell curve thing. It really stretches out at the end where whatever it is, 97.5%, no, 95%. 95% is contained within 2 standard deviations. Then that tail stretches way out. Where you could say the same thing with basketball. LeBron James is better than anybody else in the league. And there's only a couple hundred people that are like anywhere near in that neighborhood.
He's probably a Six Sigma, like.
Right. So those tails get really skinny. And it's the same thing with money. And it will always be that same thing with money. Some people are much better at getting money. They will get more money.
And it's not even a perfect bell curve, because I've read about it in old studies where they did it, and it was actually like a real world. I can't believe it. It might have been something related to Israel, or when there was a whole population of people that moved somewhere else, and the whole economy was kind of like everybody was given the same amount of money, and over time, this curve developed because there's people that save, there's people that spend, there's people that facilitate liquidity, and like the whole going back to the old marshmallow test with the kids. Some
Right.
people are like, "Oh, I'll wait for two," and some people are like, "Give me that marshmallow." And this
Yep.
is just a way that populations play out over time. And I think, like I was saying earlier, it's just when that kind of spreads out over 200 years, the balance gets a little out of whack.
Okay. I don't know if I disagree entirely, but I do think that this is the key. This is the crux of this whole thing. That is, rules of the money that you're using determines who or what actions get you out on that long tail. So there's a bell curve of the distribution of money. And if the set of rules for a money are lie, cheat, steal, screw, then it's going to be the biggest psychopath who is the best at ripping people off is going to be the one that stretches way out on that tail. They're going to be the one that accumulates massive amounts of wealth. Mm-hmm. The set of rules of a money are there's only so much money. If you either have the money or you don't. The money is created in a decentralized manner. If you want to get some of this new money that's being created, you must help secure the network. In that set of rules, I think the people who get way out on this tail end, they're doing much different actions.
I think the fallacy with that is assuming that all of the value comes from securing the network.
All of the new Bitcoin that's created comes from securing the network.
The new Bitcoin.
Yep.
That doesn't talk. What about all the old that's out there? And it doesn't. People can accumulate through nefarious means, which they already are. Like that's organized crime is making their money now on cryptocurrencies. Let's just scam people online. We don't even gotta leave our house. They're just like scam. So it's they can still accumulate it through nefarious means. That's why it's like if there's a guy, I think he's been on the Dick Allgaier videos, the remote viewing one, and he does a KevBot report. I totally lost where I was going with this, but what was I gonna say? He was describing how like he's saying like Bitcoin's it's another trap because of how it's set up, like the way that it's all set up, it's a trap. And he was kind of describing like how could you make a system where it was kind of fair, and he was kind of saying. And what he took off, I can't remember what he exactly said because I kind of started throwing in some of my own thoughts, but imagine a system where it's like the coins get deposited into your account from the time you're born, and it's based on your age, and it just accumulates because of you. It's not like outside work, like it comes into your account and then you use it out into the economy and you can transact that way and gather and accumulate. But it's like everybody's given the same amount. Because from the time they're born, it's just the whole system set up to where it's depositing it into their wallet, their Social Security wallet, and everybody gets the same amount. And then from there, you can contribute to society and gain more via your. It's like your birth time record is your value, and if you can contribute to society, you can get more back. Other people will contribute their value to you. And that's a system where it's no overarching thing controlling it, making the currency. It's just a system that everybody born gets a certain amount, and then they can transact in society with it.
How do you prove that you're born?
Well, this is you get it when you you have to be somewhere. That's what if the system devolves someplace. You're born, you get your wallet. You get your wallet. You get a name. You get your wallet for your life on this great AI computer that's creating the random currency that we all use. That's not randomly created. It's created for life. Your life, your hours spent on this planet, that currency is created for you. You get to choose to spend it. That's the only way it's created. I'm like,
I think I like the general idea. I'm just trying to figure out how that technically would happen.
Yeah, I know that's that. But see, now this is where we go and we like, okay, let's try and flesh that idea out. How would we create that system? It'd have to be something where right when you're born, there'd have to be some worldwide organization that comes in and like
Right.
And you maybe, this is where you get into the whole mark of the beast and all this shit. You might have to have some fucking thing where you're like, I got a chip. This is my wallet. I don't fucking know. And then you got these old people like, whoa, you're controlling me and tracking me. I'm like, okay, go back and do it the old fucking way. What?
That worldwide system is where, as soon as you, like, while you were saying that, like, I'm pretty sure it falls apart there. That worldwide system, how do you protect that from getting hijacked? And that's the whole Bitcoin thing, right? It's like, how do you protect this from getting hijacked?
Mm-hmm. Well,
How do
that's the code. It's like, I don't know how, but we have to think of the idea, then create it. Like that's a seems like a fairer approach than this has been running, and especially the people at the beginning that were really tech just mined 30,000 Bitcoin in a freaking week. Because that's like that. It's like shit. It's
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. Like
beautiful
it's
because you're a techie.
But they, or even us, to a much smaller degree, because it's already 2018, benefit. We benefit from bringing in this new system. And if the new system is that much better, then I think the people who started it, the people who were there at the very beginning, should benefit the most.
Mm-hmm.
They should get rewarded for building this thing.
Well, when does that end?
It slowly fades away. It's much less so. It's true to a much smaller degree right now than it was 5 years ago, and it will be much less true in 5 years from now.
To me, it's just another like it started off with a system that some have more, some have less, and it's like that's where we're at already.
Here's what I'm saying though: who has more and who has less?
Well,
is the way to get more by screwing everybody, or is the way to get more by helping build it?
I get what you're saying, but you're assuming that the people that have the most Bitcoin are good people. You're assuming that they're not the people that are currently in charge.
No, I'm just saying that no matter how much Bitcoin they have, they can't unilaterally change the rules of Bitcoin.
Well, that's true.
That's the difference between purchasing power and the power to create money. If you have a whole shit ton of purchasing power, but you're foolish or malevolent with it and you try and scam people. So the same thing you were saying about scams. Yeah, there are scams going and people can make money off of scams, but it's not sustainable. People are going to figure that out and they're going to protect themselves from you. And therefore you're going to stop making money that way. Mm-hmm. If I build, whatever it is, I don't care, a company, if I build a company that's benefiting a lot of people, then that is sustainable. I can keep making money because I built something that's actually adding to society. Now I have a way to come up and I get rewarded from doing something that's helping people rather than I get rewarded for stealing from the whole system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In our system right now, the people who get rewarded the biggest are the people who do the best job stealing. I think in a system with sound money, so let's throw out Bitcoin and like the debate just for a second, whether it's sound or not. If we had sound money, then the people who win in a sound money world are the people who are adding the most, rather than the people who are the best at screwing other people.
I don't think money has that much power over people. Like, I don't think that it can change people that much. Like, I think even if it was sound, like, define sound.
Sound is, it is what it is. There is a, no, that's not a good definition. Part of it, I think, has to be there's only so much. Part of it has to be that it's created in a reasonable and transparent manner. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough to do on the fly.
So say you're like, oh, this thing is gonna make like. For me, I come from the psychology background. I'm like, no matter how perfect any system, you put people on it, I'm like, it's gonna get corrupted. That's what we do. So it's more, and that's why I say, like, what I like about Bitcoin, it's not going to change everything, but it's, if we're currently, if if society's playing like it's a chord on a piano, what Bitcoin is doing is changing some of the chords that are playing. And it's gonna like it's changing the overall frequency of how we're all operating. It's gonna make us more honest. People are gonna like, and you're saying like, over 200 years, people are gonna start to realize this and start choosing. And again, we're going, are we doing long term or short term conversation? But it's gonna change how we all operate, and we all are gonna start moving away from people that lie, cheat, steal, and screw. It's gonna take time, but at the same time, to think that it's going to get completely rid of it is to me is denying the reality of duality. Like there's this opposing force that it does not ever go away.
I agree that there will always be that opposing force, and it'd be boring without that opposing force.
That's why we're here, man.
But I think that Bitcoin broke down that initial door, and breaking down that initial door changed the environment from a non-competitive environment to a competitive environment.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as we're and non-competitive environments are unsustainable.
Yeah.
What the
world needs to America especially is that all of our wars have been fought not because these people were doing bad things, it's because these people were like, let's not use the dollar. And the US dollar is like, no. And now what happened is that, and you helped me understand this, is that there wasn't a country to attack with Bitcoin. There wasn't a country that they could attack. There wasn't a dictator that they could kill.
Right.
And that's why Satoshi was anonymous.
Right.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, you're right. That Bitcoin, like, it's vapor. It's the vaporware country. It's like, can't catch me. Haha. Trying, and it's just, and like, get you the ethos of cryptocurrencies. They corrupt Bitcoin. We're all gonna be like, Bitcoin. Did you buy it? What?
Exactly.
New coin. Fuck you.
and the people that are the best at that will end up with the most money, and the people that are the worst at that will end up with the least money.
See, but you got to realize some of the people that are the best at that are the bad people. You do got to realize. Ask Bix about Brock Pierce and all them.
For sure.
Brock Pierce might have been one of the people that manifested much of this digital asset world. He was like, hey, I'm going to start getting people to pay me for the code they use in the game. Bam. Right. Like, I don't know. I haven't met the guy, but like, the people that are some of these worst people are the ones that like, let's create this shit. And I was trying to describe, I think I was talking to you about this too, like the new system that's being created, if it's an old system in control and somebody's trying to create the new system, they're basically going to be criminals. Just on the definition of the old system's dictionary, these people are fucking criminals. So like, wanting criminality out of cryptocurrency, especially in the beginning, is foolhardy because they're the ones creating it. They're the ones like, let me not do what that whole big ass entity with the big ass army tells me to do. I'm a criminal. Like, then it's like after the criminals, and who knows, after whoever busted it open, that's when the general population and the 90% of good people can come in and start to really transform all of it. That's why even with EOS, if it was, that's a fucking money grab. $4 billion, and then it's like, it's a halfway working project, take it. And but it got people enthused, and now there's developers around the world dispersed working on different EOS projects. Yeah, it took a company that's like, I'll take your $4 billion and prop up Tether over here and all this shit. If that's all that happened, it still got it out there, and it's one of the biggest network effects. And like when you look at transactions on the network, it's pretty good. It's the top. And maybe over 10 years, it will become a really established decentralized system, the same way that it took Ethereum several years to get decentralized and work out all their bugs. But it started with some criminals. But good people will come in and change it.
I think good people and criminals are almost equal to each other right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like by definition, if the old system is corrupt, then the good people are criminals.
Yeah. Guess what? Semantics. That's what people don't get. I'm like, we're all like, you can have a certain goal. You're like with Bix, he's very passionate about the way he's going at it. But I'm like, there's a whole transition happening in here, and when you're fighting the war, you don't want a bunch of goody two shoes. Promise you, you want some bad, scummy people on your side as well. I don't know, and not to say that I'm condoning that, but it's a war, man. Governments, they'll just snuff you out. Like they've snuffed out world leaders, man.
Yeah. The thing is, we spread it all over the world this time. There is no person. There is no place to go. There is no. And I think they realized that in like 2014 or 15, and that was when I saw a big shift away from trying to shut this stuff down and towards trying to subvert it. I felt them turn, and now they realize we can't stop this thing. We got to do our best to jack as much energy as we can. As we can.
And this is when you get. So I was like again, I'm on the Crypto Viewing Patreon group because there's some interesting stuff, and I like that guy, Michael. He's got a really interesting perspective. But and this is when you get into like long-term history, and you get into the Dragon family over in China. You got the Rothschilds and whoever here. There's multiple. He's talking about like, okay, if you want to get in the woo-woo side of it, there's minimum 6 civilizations that have existed on this planet. 6 like ours. Imagine even if you just do 6 million years straight and put one in the middle of each one of those million years, we would have no idea they exist.
Right.
Then that's just accept that. Like that's the biggest like eerie feeling. If I think about that, my whole body's like, it's like the sound of like silence and crickets, because I can feel that this thing existed and it's just gone. And it's just disturbing. That's why we don't want to think about it. But imagine that any one of these civilizations was able to survive throughout the whole time and remain hidden. And they're the thing that's like, and that's when I was watching this video and he was talking like in my studies, there's always kind of been, and look at our history books, there's always been this kind of thing where there's some force utilizing human power to evolve the species forward. Like some overarching government, some force that's like utilizing, almost slaving humans in some form of way to evolve. And he's like, and they're hundreds of years ahead of. They have a 100-year plan. Their plan is it's 100 years ahead of where it's actually being taking place, and that's like we can't really hope to get ahead of it. It's like half of it's just trying to see the pattern and ride the river. And that's what he's saying. It's like even with this whole thing, like this has been a long time coming. And it like to him, he's like, they were talking about this in the 70s and laying out the groundwork for this. And what do you think about that?
I think that I think we often give other people too much credit. I don't buy it. I don't buy that there's anybody that has that much control, that has that much foresight or whatever it is to be able to know that well what's going to happen and to be able to predict all of the different unintended consequences of their actions and to be able to plan for them and head them all off. And I just don't buy it.
You don't predict every single thing. You can't. That's impossible. You can have a general outline, but you're talking about to the T, but you can have a general direction you want things to move.
I certainly think that there are groups of people, a lot of power, who have directions that they want things to move, and they're spending energy trying to move things in those directions. I certainly agree with that. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that they're as successful as a lot of people think they are.
Well, what he was saying in this is that this has been planned, and it's moving towards a worldwide, digitalized, connected your identity on a blockchain thing. And he's saying they're trying to fight it and get it to fight against certain steps or certain patterns that are being played out is kind of pointless. Like a lot of these people that are freedom fighting, like, no, we're going to stay anonymous and all this stuff forever. He's kind of saying over time,
I don't buy that at all. And I fundamentally disagree with Dick in that. I feel like he is just convinced. He's already consigned, resigned, said that whatever. There's people that'll just control everything, and we might as well just do the best we can to exist in the world where they control everything. I don't buy it. I don't think that makes any sense. Like in a natural world, I don't think that follows nature whatsoever. There's not, and it's this thing. I don't know if you saw the video I made, enforcement costs. No? It ends really funny. You gotta watch it. I got a crack out of making it. But it starts with this Jordan Peterson clip, and it's a 30-second clip out of a 30-minute speech he gave at somewhere about the importance of free speech. The title he put on it on his YouTube channel was "The Importance of Free Speech," parentheses, "Are you listening, Saudis?" One of the things he said in there is he was talking about, I think, Jakob Paintsep and his study of games. And then what's a really good game? A really good game is a game where everybody plays voluntarily. And if you have two parallel games with the same objective, and this one people are forced to play, and this one people are playing voluntarily, then over the long term, this one will win because this one is not spending any energy on enforcement costs. So if there was a group of people who wanted to control the entire world, the enforcement cost of that would be astro-fucking-nomical. That would cost so incredibly much money. Where are you going to get that much money? Are you going to tax it out of the people that you're trying to control?
What do you mean? What makes you think they're not already doing it?
Well, they're trying.
What do you think the news is? That's
exactly.
A lot of money to run the news.
Yeah, here's what I'm saying, though.
It's already happening.
They're trying, and they're spending a ridiculous amount of energy trying to do it. And as they lose control, they're spending even more money, and it gets even more unsustainable, and then eventually it just falls. That's what I'm saying. Is eventually
more money. That's just money that they're printing. It don't matter to them.
Exactly. But as they print that money, they destroy their tool of control.
Yeah, but right now they have when is it going to switch? Because it's not going to switch until there's more people in cryptos than there is not. And by the time that happens, they're gonna have led the people there.
I'm saying that cryptos are going to get adopted because they've destroyed their tool to control. We wouldn't switch from the US dollar if the pain of change versus the pain of staying the same, right? People change when the pain of changing crosses under the pain of staying the same. We wouldn't switch unless the pain of change became less than the pain of staying the same.
How you I don't assume, I don't believe either side, but I don't assume that they're completely out of control of this. I don't assume that they're in control of it, whoever. Like that they're losing power of the US dollar. How do you know that they didn't line this up to drive the value of the US dollar down? I don't assume that that's the case. I don't assume that the universe is finally winning for the good people, or it's the bad people, or the plans are playing out perfectly. I'm just kind of like, let's see how I can navigate in this now moment. But I just don't see a greater percentage of the population being the independent type, because it doesn't seem like that's...
I agree with you, and I don't think they have to or even can be. It just we're working together, and you can't have 5 point guards on the same basketball team. You'll lose. But for sure, the US dollar is a tool of massive control for them. Everybody uses the US dollar. They have the ability to print it. Therefore, they have the ability to buy. They have a crazy amount of power through that. If the US dollar ceases to be used by people, then they've lost this very powerful tool of control. And what you're saying is maybe they're trying to funnel it into a tool that's even more powerful.
Yeah, they're trying to funnel into something they control. And how do we know? So especially with Satoshi being anonymous, right? We
Yep.
don't know who the fuck does it controls any of it. And we're like,
Oh, no. I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that for a second. Because the code is way different than when Satoshi wrote it. It doesn't matter who that
I know,
what matters is that it's computer code.
Yeah, and what matters is there's going to be other codes written, probably by them too, and it's going to be a propaganda game of who can get who into what network and build tribalism again. And it was going to take years to kind of weed that system out.
It will definitely be a propaganda game to people who don't know how to read code. But for the people
who, like, I don't even know how to read code, man.
Right. But there will always be people who do know how to read code.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you never figure out how to read code, but you are wise enough to go look at the people who actually do know how to read code and that are telling you how this thing, what it says, they're translating the code to you, then you can still make a much more informed decision than if you're just listening to propaganda who are screaming about what their code does.
And we are the statistical outliers in our society. the people that will search this out and go that extra step to debunk what we've been told by the grander propaganda machine.
Right.
It's funny, because last night I was watched. Have you ever seen Rick and Morty? I think we talked about this. Check it out. But in the beginning of the third season, episode 1, Rick, he's the smartest man in the galaxy universe. But he turned himself in anyways to destroy the whole galactic empire thing. He's like, this is how you destroy the whole world. And he turns and he goes and he opens up the computer and he turns their global currency from a 1 to a 0. He's like, how do you destroy the whole? And then, like, did you see everybody starts freaking out and like, how do we get paid? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be paid. And everybody, it just self-destructs. And like, it's such a great, like, it comes right in line with what's going on right now because of what you were describing. Like, they're destroying. The problem is the whole world has used the reserve currency is like, okay, we all agree what 1 is. We need to know what 1 is. Like, if you take away the dollar, we're like, what's a 1 of any currency? What's 1? And people, we don't know. If it was gone, if we were like one Bitcoin, that would fucking suck, right? Because there's not even enough for, what is it? If you have
there's more net worth to millionaires than the U.S. than there are Bitcoins.
Yeah, if you have 0.24 Bitcoin, you'll have more than most people will ever be able to get. Like they're saying, if you have 0.24, like there's only 100,000. I can't remember the number, but there was this 1 million people that can have 0.24 Bitcoin or something. No, that's not right. Anyways, if you have 0.24 Bitcoin within a few years, you'll have more than most people will ever be able to accumulate.
Right. I mean, there's 21 million Bitcoin and 300 million people in the U.S. So
there's not 21 million Bitcoin. There's like
14. Yeah. So let's call it 20 for easy math, and this is overestimating. If there's 20 million Bitcoin, then whatever 300 divided by 20 is, 15 over 10. No, 15 over 1. 15 over 1. So every person, if the U.S. was the only country that existed, if there's only 300 million people on the planet, then everybody would have a 15th of a Bitcoin, and we all had an equal amount. We'd have 1/15. That's what we'll be trading in. We already are. Like, jokes. I don't know if he's making fun of me. I think he's just kind of awkward, and he's trying to ask questions. He's just awkward about it. But I showed him my phone while I bought a sandwich, and the sandwich cost me 0.00013 Bitcoin. Maybe it was 0.0013 Bitcoin. But either way, we're already transacting in really small amounts. And we'll get smaller and smaller. Yeah.
But I think that's what, like, if you just take the whole world and collective consciousness operating at a certain level, and for a while it's been like, 1 is the US dollar. Like, the chaos that's going on, we don't know. Like, everybody's like, how do we change that? Like, how does that even happen? We can't even foresee how that transition will take place, where the U.S. dollar, all the U.S. dollars come back to the U.S. and then all the countries start operating in their own currencies, and then we transition to a new. It's like this dots in a line that we have to go through each step to get to new world currency, and the world's kind of freaking out. like we don't know what we're doing. We all have to go through this together.
We like decided how long a foot was, and then we gave someone the power over the standard ruler, and it was their. They were incentivized to change the length of that ruler, so the ruler just keeps stretching and stretching and stretching, and all of us are like, "What the hell is a foot?"
Mm-hmm. That's like just on as an aside. That's to me one of the perfect examples of like duality. Like we have the metric system, and like, there's always going to be another system. Like, no, we're not going to use that. We're going to be the foot. like it's the U.S. that uses that, and then the rest of the world uses the metric system. We're like,
right.
Disharmony. What? But yeah. I think
certainly. Go ahead.
This ties right back to the Tristan dilemma and like the world reserve currency. We're trying to hash that out, and to me, it was just that's the beauty of academics, especially people that are very logical or something. And I'm more work on the communication side. They'll just say things plainly and flat out that are like big world impacting statements, like, and just be like, yeah, that's how. And later on, they don't get it.
Right. Yeah, I think that we have to decentralize it. Here's a way of saying it. We've been going about it the lazy way. It is certainly much more messy to have this crazy competitive environment where prices are always fluctuating a little bit, and there's a whole bunch of different cryptos, and you can move in and out, and they compete with each other. That's like, in a lot of ways, that's a lot more messy. But it's more natural. It's more real. We've been trying to do it the lazy way, and the lazy way is putting a person in charge to tell us what to do. And long term, that burns us. It destroys us. Here, competitive thing, it's a lot harder, but the people who are out there competing, making stuff happen, are going to be the ones that pull ahead, rather than the people who are the best at grabbing for power.
Mm-hmm. I think to me, what you just said reminded me and ties back into even what you were saying earlier. And I think the way I heard it was good times make soft people make hard times make hard people, and hard people make good times.
Right.
And then I heard, and it was just yesterday, and I was talking about it, and it was actually somebody referring back to stories of like the ruling power classes, and they were referring to the Saudis now, but the ruling classes in the Middle East, and how it was like some old or ancient philosopher was saying it was like a 3-generation lifespan. It's the first generation that establishes powers. They're the desert dwellers that hardy and they toughen up. They battle, they establish the dominance, and the whole world respects them because of their power. Their children, the second generation, they've lost some of that hardiness, but still some of that old respect is there. But by the third generation, the power structure has become tyrannical because they don't remember how the desert life was, and they just are like enforcing the power. And at that point, there's the new desert dwellers consolidating their power that are being prepared to take over this new thing. It seems like that's kind of this transition we're going through, where you can put people in power, but after a while, the people that are in power are not the original leaders that were good, strong, powerful leaders, and we're like, time to take them out. And so, my caveat to what you're saying is like, there's always going to be a certain system in power because the general public needs a leader, like in Chiefs and Indians. But it's the quality of that top leadership that needs to.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Jordan Peterson talks about all the time Marduk, and apparently one of these societal things that they had was that the leader of the country or whatever it was, the leader of the people, every year he got taken out into the streets and like stripped down and had to confess all the things he did wrong. If we're not constantly renewing this power structure, and we got soft, we got complacent, we built this power structure, it was pretty solid. We got soft, we got complacent, it got corrupted, and now it's running itself and us into the ground, and we got to build the next one. And it's constantly that.
It's unsustainable.
Right. And I don't think it will be Bitcoin forever. I think Bitcoin is a step, but then then there's more and more steps. But as long as we keep doing that, as long as we keep revitalizing this thing and working, then we're not going to get burned by complacency.
Just keep having these conversations and try to work towards a more evolved future of humanity.
I put in a tweet the other day after I went to a meetup and was having this conversation and like tried to boil the whole conversation, or at least the main thing, into a tweet. I said, I think that as technology improves, it will get easier to be complacent, and also that the costs of complacency will grow. So the bottom's coming up. If you want to watch, like in 15 years, I literally think if you just want to watch VR porn for your whole life, that'll be okay. You will be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it'll get easier to be complacent, but the cost of complacency will grow, where the people who are actually out there moving, getting stuff done, paying attention, working hard, those people will go way, way up.
Yeah. And like we're kind of moving that. We'll have robots to take care of the general population. Maybe there'll be some kind of basic income where you're just giving it and you can interact. But if you want more and you want a greater, like a more fancy lifestyle, you're going to have to contribute a little bit more. Yeah.
Right. I'm stoked for that. I'm stoked for that freedom to be able to go work hard and come up, rather than basically the only way to come up is sell your soul.
Yeah, we're definitely moving into a new age and a new. We're kind of like, let's reshuffle this top ruling. Let's get some good rulers in there. Yeah.
The rules, and if we change the rules, then a different set of people eventually filters out to the top. The rules are what picks who filters to the top. Right now, our rules pick the worst people to filter to the top. Let's try and change the rules to get a different, better set of people to filter to the top.
Yep. Well, I think that's slowly happening.
Yep.
I'm curious. I'm looking forward to the next few years to see how this all plays out.
It's hard how slow it is.
I know. That's the biggest thing. I got into this like the middle of last year, and now I'm like, oh crap, this has been a really long year with this down market. I'm like, oh, I can see what's happening, but I'm like, but I think back in January, February, I looked at the chart and then I looked at the last up down cycle, and I'm like, oh crap, I hope this doesn't go 2 years like that. But at the same time, I kind of accepted that it might, and part of me was like, but then I can accumulate more.
Yeah.
But I would.
There's pros and cons either way, and I don't think this is an event. Just like the world is moving on, the world is changing, the rules are changing, and it's a process. It's a never-ending process. Yeah,
we just got to be patient. My 5 keys, and I'm writing my next book, and I think the 5 keys I discovered life is awareness, acceptance, intention, action, and patience. And number 5 is my least favorite. I hate patience. Yeah. It's just those are the 5 keys. That's all life is, and what you need to kind of move forward and progress in life.
Right. Live today. Do a good job living today, and eventually that will compound into whatever you do. Whatever you do, it will compound into whatever it compounds into.
Yeah.
All right. Should we call it a day?
Yeah, I gotta get going.
All right, cool. It was good talking to you, man.
You too, man.
All right, peace.
Peace.